that be again, son? Get you open like 6 packs. This is where you should be putting your work into. The streets.
Do you think your Wu Tang sword can defeat me? On guard. I'll let you try my Wu Tang style. Bring the motherfucking ruckus! Bring the motherfucking ruckus! Bring the motherfucking ruckus! Bring the motherfucking ruckus!
Greetings. I am Brother Spence. This blessed uprising, the day after, might I say, the very day after the last day of school, the last day of the school year 2022 to 2023, June the 7th, blessed day. And today is June the 8th. I got to sleep in this morning instead of having to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. It was nice. Now, about the infamous Wu Tang and American Saga Series that have come out on Hulu in the past 3.5 years is amazing. You know, many fellow brethren and sistren and different people have been watching this American Saga Wu Tang series on Hulu. We had the final 3rd season. 3 seasons. The final 3rd season wrapping up just a couple months ago, early spring. So for those that haven't checked it out, definitely check out Wu Tang and American Saga Series. That is the Wu Tang Clan and the origin of how the RZA, aka Bobby, one of the main characters, the RZA began to put this empire together to start this revolution. I remember vividly, to speak for myself, I remember vividly in middle school listening to rap and hip hop. You know, rocking out to Naughty by Nature, still listening to my Run DMC cassette tapes and Beastie Boys, EPMD, Public Enemy, even dabbled with some West Coast, Cypress Hill, House of Pain, Ice Cube, Ice-T, some old school NWA, little dabble with some Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg and variations, but I knew the origin of original rap and hip hop back then. I also listened to a lot of classic rock music and punk rock music, variations of heavy metal and stuff like that many youth begin listening to at the age of 15, 16, 17. But anyways, with all that being said, when the 36 Chambers album first came out back in the early 90s, it brought back the whole essence of Eric B. and Rakim, Big Daddy Kane, all this stuff that was coming out that even I listened to back in the 5th and 6th grade. Back in the 6th grade, there was a lot of East Coast and West Coast rappers coming together to help stop the violence, all this street violence and gang violence, and pointing out the evils of police brutality taking place. And so the Wu Tang Clan kind of resurrected that original essence, even back then, from its origin. Sure. Flashback, 1997. My old friend, Lou Aaron. And you have a young version of me. Young version of John Curtis Spence and Lou Aaron. You're supposed to be in class right now. Wow.
Hey, you know,
So,
everybody's talking about the good old days, right? Everybody.
the good old days.
The good old days. Well, let's talk about the good old days.
The good old days. Yes. Wu Tang was and still is for the children. Wu Tang is for the children. Today, those seeds planted back in the early to mid to late 90s, early 2000s, to this present time in 2023. These divine seeds through the divine inspired lyrics of the Wu Tang Clan. All 9 original members. All 9 original members had divine seeds in their lyrics. We didn't even know it back then. We didn't. Yes. This whole series, this entire series, produced by the RZA. And they were talking about the divine inspiration when it came to knowledge of self and how that applied to the art form of original rap and hip hop culture, as well as the music.
So then it is not of him that willeth, nor of him that runneth, but of God that showeth mercy. So then the question is, who does God have mercy for? Black man himself is God. And knowing that has no fear about who shows him mercy. Because the nation of Islam embodies righteousness and wisdom. How can the nation of Islam embody righteousness and wisdom when you don't know where you're from? In that situation? Isaiah 34:16. Seek ye the book of the Lord and read. So you good. You don't have a holy book to go by. You don't even believe in God.
Shalom, family. Mark is back at you. Had to double back on this RZA interview. Yeah, yo, shout out to Bobby Digital, yo. Shout out to the RZA, man. So yeah, fam, I'm super late on this one. Like, when I put the other post up the other day with RZA on the Breakfast Club, I had no idea they had actually put the Israelites in the Wu Tang American Saga. But then shout out to Robert Woods. He commented on the video saying RZA didn't make the Israelites look foolish in the series, and I had to and I was like, what? Say word. So I went and looked it up and checked it out, and shout out to RZA, yo. Shout out to the Abbott. You know what I mean? He did his thing, man. Like, you know.
So, what I thought was interesting, besides the conflict of Ghostface Killer and Raekwon in the earlier days when they were shooting at each other, you know, busting shots and shooting each other in the streets, and then they became best friends as core parts of the Wu Tang Clan. You know, besides that whole conflict with Raekwon and Ghost, I thought what else was interesting about this series, even in the first season. So yeah, I thought it was interesting. They showed some of the other camps of the Black Hebrew Israelites from different parts of New York City. And different parts of New York City in that time was a part of history, as well as the 5% nation of gods and earth, and that influence of the Nation of Islam as well. And you can also see the contrast as well as the unity. Yeah, that unification, that mystical parallel connection between two components of
And knowing that has no fear.
God consciousness.
Because the Nation of Islam embodies righteousness and wisdom. How can the Nation of Islam embody righteousness and wisdom when you don't know where you're from?
Two groups of people having a discourse, right? So it's like either it's a Nation of Islam or five. I don't know if they were 5%ers, and then they turned it, and then they started dropping some Nation of Islam stuff, and some Israelites. And you know the
So then it is not of him that willeth, nor of him that runneth, but of God that showeth mercy. So then the question is, who does God have mercy for? Black man himself is God. And knowing that has no fear about who shows him mercy. Because the Nation of Islam embodies righteousness and wisdom. How can the Nation of Islam embody righteousness and wisdom when you don't know where you're from? In that situation? Isaiah 34:16. Seek ye the book of the Lord and read. So you're good. You don't have a holy book to go by. You don't even believe in God.
two groups of people having a discourse, right? So it's like either it's a Nation of Islam or five. I don't know if they were 5%ers, and then they turned it, and then they started dropping some Nation of Islam stuff, and some Israelites. And you know the Nation of Islam brothers was like, "Yo, we are the gods. You know, we ain't looking for mercy from nobody." And rightfully so, the Israelites came back to that saying, "How can you talk about righteousness and mercy, being over anybody when you don't even know who you are?" And then we took it to the scriptures, man. So it was a beautiful depiction of truth. At the end of the day, man, we want truth to always reign, man. You know what I mean? That gospel of Christ, man, to reign true and spread in the four corners of the earth, man. So
Yes, yeah. So many, not all, but many of the other camps of Hebrew Israelites reject Haile Selassie, reject His Majesty, reject the Rastafari movement, all mansions within Rastafari, but not all. Not all of the other camps of Black Hebrew Israelites are on this racism thing. Rejecting other races from coming into the kingdom, which goes against the foundation of Jah Word. Mm-hmm. They reject Ethiopia and Africa. But not all. Not all camps of the Israelites, reject the righteous Gentiles, according to flesh and blood from other nations, from being grafted in through Christ, through the Mashiach, Yeshaya, or Yeshua, aka Jesus Christ, the Messiah, in the first advent. Not all, not all, not all. The Rastafari were the first to claim killer priests, killer priests affiliated with the Wu Tang Clan, who makes that connection as a Hebrew Israelite, as well as a 5%er, in connection with the Nation of Gods and Earth. He has his own podcast on YouTube, reaching out to people of all nations, Kemetic, Hebraic, Islamic, as one people, all races of all people, on his show, talking about black holes, talking about aliens and Sasquatch, breaking down the walls of Babylon that try to separate the people. And it shows in the recent third season the evolution of Jizza's first album, the infamous Genius first album, Liquid Swords, and that essence that brought back the whole origin of original rap and hip hop culture is what the Wu Tang Clan, represented. The only thing that kind of disappointed me is I thought they might find another actor to play Killer Priest. I was a little disappointed about that. They kind of cut this part off.
Others act subtle, but they fragile above cloud. They act wild and couldn't grudge a crowd. Fucking boy, when you fake moves on a nigga, you implode.
So yeah, all these different scenes kind of served as planting seeds to resonate that spiritual balance of different God-conscious components of the true Christ mind. Yeah. It also showed the contrast of the good amongst the other Jewish people, amongst the other Jews according to lineage or heritage or religion, the little hats versus the not so good little hats of the Zionist powers and record labels that try to distort the original art form of hip hop music. Now, one of the brothers that helped them get their first record label was a Jewish brother. So we cannot make blanket statements towards anybody
You believe you freed the people,
amongst
gave them back
other
their culture, but it will not
titles
last.
or religions.
There will be new ways to keep good swords will not work on me. Cool. Let's find out a real one.
Yeah,
Loyalty, one of my biggest strengths and one of my biggest weaknesses, son.
there's so many contrasts of
You got me dressing up in a tuxedo.
good versus evil, the righteous versus the wicked, the true divine beings from all walks of life and dimensions of God consciousness.
Appetite for destruction. Rap a murder rap on the production. I touch something, trust nothing. Iron lung, twisted metal. I see him ducking. My dark gun busting from every angle.
There's different level of Christ consciousness or Messiah consciousness. Remember, I mentioned that reverence to Abba's creation and the commandments of the Most High, the foundation of Jah Torah and the commandments, and then we have that reverence and acceptance of Hamashiach through the precious blood of the covenant, that is the atonement, and we have the final component of God consciousness or true Christ consciousness, which is knowledge of self.
Amen. Teaches Kabbalah. Amen.
Yes, we have that metaphysical divine connection with
the Sabbath reading, the Torah portion reading for the 33rd Torah portion, known in the Amharic and Selassie's and Haile Selassie's Orit or Torah.
Now remember, those who have seen the end of the third season, one of them was tempted by some of the other so-called Jewish brethren. They were not brethren, they were wolves in sheep's clothing and little hats. So it's not all little hats. Amongst those who wear the different style of keppas and kufis and turbans and that sort. Not all, so we cannot make blanket statements. But there were those of the powers that be that we have to watch out for, and it showed the unity and the divine power of brotherhood, of ones looking after each other to help the brethren keep up the revolution of the Wu wear, the Wu wear clothing that was coming out back in the late '90s to early 2000s. It's that divine power of brotherhood and unity to help each other out instead of giving in to the powers that be. And then, last but not least, we have the divine message of balance. That spiritual Tai Chi that I'm always talking about, always preaching about through my vlogs in the past recent couple years. Because the very ending scene of the last episode, season 3, has a scene where the members of the Wu Tang Clan went to go visit RZA's mother in their mansion on Thanksgiving Day. And earlier before this scene, there's a moment where Old Dirty Bastard, or of course the actor who is the ODB's son, who's playing his father, Old Dirty Bastard, says something about, well, that's a white man's holiday, and the slaughter of the native Indians, which is 100% true. Sad but true, nothing new. But they still got together, you know, as black men, as Africans and God men got together despite traditions of man within Babylon's system. And this shows that balance where, you know, we can partake in certain things because, oh yeah, the man gives us that day off of our occupations. This is people of all nations, all races, gender. This is universal. That sometimes a little spiritual Tai Chi to show love to family, because honor to our earthly parents.
God bless. All due respect. Boycott Thanksgiving.
A scene from an earlier video I did
Out of Babylon.
almost 2 years ago titled
Through God's grace, through Yahweh's extended grace,
How to Cope
we use
with Thanksgiving.
spiritual Tai Chi to reverse engineer the so-called Thanksgiving season. So now we give thanks to the Most High Jah. We give thanks to the Almighty One, the true living God, or Elohim, for sparing that seed or that remnant amongst the Gadites and Reubenites, the so-called native Indians.
This is how we maintain that spiritual balance, that spiritual harmony. All right. Stay tuned to the advanced Yehuda Eye or advanced Jedi training coming soon. Thanks.